Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how I installed cable pedal steering in my Ascend 12T kayak. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. These are the main parts I'm going to be using in this project. This is 1/4-inch diameter irrigation tubing, which is made for outdoor use. This mono boat-style guitar jack, which I'll be using as a tubing guide. Some Dressmaker Straight Pins. 1/4-inch diameter brass insert, and 2mm Dyneema cord. In order for this to be used as a guide, I'm going to have to modify this mono jack. And how I'm going to do that is removing this from the back of that hollow screw part. So I'm just going to take this apart. So I'm going to cut this off here because what this is going to actually act as a bushing. And when you slide the 1/4-inch tubing through here, it's a nice snug fit, and that helps make up that gap in there. So after I cut this off, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I cut the threaded section off of the guitar jack like this, and you're probably going to screw up the threads on the bottom here. So not to worry, just go ahead and put both of them on from the same side, the good side, like so. And then it'll bottom out there and stay. Then you would put it in here like this, and go ahead and put the other nut on that side. And this is what's going to make your tubing guide. Okay, so I've marked the front exit hole for the tubing right up in here, and you can see my little black mark there. So I'll go ahead and drill that out. Okay, so now I have my hole drilled, and the next thing will be to start running the tubing through it. Now, one thing I did find when I was working on this is that the interior of this hull has a lot of structural foam. So it was very difficult, and I couldn't even get it done, just to go ahead and use fish tape between the holes up to the front. So what I ended up doing was removing this rod holder, and that gives you a clear view inside of the hull where you can start pulling the tube through. Okay, so I fed the tubing through the front exit hole, and as I go around to where I removed the rod holder, I was able to get in there with a pair of forceps, which you can buy these at Harbor Freight relatively cheap, to pull it out of the hole. Okay, moving up to the front exit hole, what I'm going to do now is form a little flange or lip on the end of this tubing using a lighter and a putty knife. You can see it bending already, and then I'm just going to press it against this knife. And that gives a nice little flange that will help keep it steady in the hole. Okay, so I pulled the tubing back, and it's being held by the little flange. But if you've ever done tubing before, you know that sometimes the tubing will stretch because of heat, or the kinks get out of it, and then sometimes the adhesive will break around here, and then it will come out when you use your pedals. So that's where these pins come in. This is one of those dress pins. But what I did was I put it in a vise and then clipped off about 1/4 inch of it. Now, I say put it in a vise to do it and hold it with a pair of pliers because you don't want that stuff flying out because it could hit you in the eye. So wear eye protection and keep it in a vise when you do it. And so what you're going to do with this is, you're going to take it like this, And I'm just going to press it through one of the sidewalls into the hull, and that will keep this from ever moving, just like this. Now that that's done, you're going to take the 1/4-inch brass insert and just go ahead and press it in there. And if you have to, you can use a little light tapping to get it in there. So this jack is going to be the rear guide for the tubing and the cord. So what I did was I put my motor on and I attached everything like it's going to be when all the steering cables are in. And I set the angle here so it would go straight in, or as straight as possible, into the guide. And once I did that, I made my marks, so now I know where to drill all my holes. After I made my marks, I drilled 2 small pilot holes and then put these smaller screws in. I won't be using these for the final install, but I just wanted to hold this in place because what I'm going to do is put this drill bit through there and follow this angle and drill into the hole. And that way I'll have the correct angle for the tubing to come out. So I'll go ahead and do that and then show you what the hole looks like. Okay, there's the final hole, and you can see that it's at a little bit of an angle that I can slide the tubing up to. Now the second part of this is I ran some fish tape through the angled hole in the back, all the way through, again, grabbing it using the forceps to pull it out here, and then what I will do is I'm going to connect this with the tubing and then pull it through the rear. And this is what it looks like in the rear with the fish tape jammed in here to pull it out. So now I've got it through, and I'm moving on to the next step. All right, so I moved back to the rear of the kayak for the rear exit point of the tubing, and what I'm going to do here is, using the same little pin that I modified, I'm just going to go through the sidewall into the hull. Now you don't want to pierce through the open area in here if you can help it, because you don't want to obstruct that tubing at all. So just stay as close to the sidewall as you can, just to lock it in place there. Okay, now that the tubing is locked in place with that pin, I threaded the guide over the tubing, and what I'll do is I'll cut it off short, flare the ends, and then do the insert. Okay, so I trimmed and flared the tubing and put the brass insert in, and I went ahead and finished the install. So now I just need to thread the Dyneema cord up to the front exit hole. So after threading it, the last thing to do was attach it to the foot pedal. So I just drilled a hole up in here, put the cord through, and then just tied a knot in the back of it. And then I'll go ahead and adjust the lengths for the optimum steering. And then, of course, you have to remove the brake, which just snaps off here, so you have a free movement of the pedals. So that's it. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments. Thank you.